Good evening. You're listening live to the Extreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob. RDV, I usually like to say I'm broadcasting from the Extreme Studios. Sometimes it's the Extreme Dojo, but right now I'm on my 5-acre palatial estate here just west of Orlando, Florida, where, Max and Daisy, my German Shepherd, Czechoslovakian Shorthead Red non-working line dogs, keep me safe from all the violence around me here in Central Florida so I can review movies with you from the Great Midwest. However, what I'm doing is since I don't own any, I decided to rent a horse, and I'm watching the sunset to the west. Because tonight, much like inflation being anywhere from 20 to 35%, depending on what metric you want to use and all that too, looking at my math stuff, why am I bringing this up and boring what little audience we have coming in already about it? Because I'm talking, damn it, about something nobody cares about in economics. I'm also talking about something else nobody cares about, but you and I love to talk about, and that's a Western. Well, of course, tonight we're reviewing Horizon American Saga Part 1, the nearly 3-hour-long setup movie, I guess we want to say, out of a 4-parter, potentially from Kevin Costner, who put up a lot of his own personal money for this. Apparently it was a pet project of his and everything else there too. And so a lot of people who went to see it, from my experience, seemed to like it. It wasn't the biggest audience, but they seemed to really like it. Nobody really seemed to dislike it. But boy, this is one of those movies that I think, because of the current political climate, which we don't necessarily get into, but I'm saying for the movie's purposes, they seem to shit all over this movie. I thought this movie's got some pluses and minuses. I'm obviously going to go into that after I hear what you have to say for your initial thoughts.
Yeah. Well, I was going to watch this through the gray sites, Then I realized, what? This 20 minutes in, this is a really good movie. And I was up for a Western. So I decided to go, you know what? When's the next time I'm going to see a Western on the big screen? I don't think there is. Give me a chance for that. Because most Westerns go straight to DVD, and you find them at Walmart.
Yeah.
Sadly, and they usually have Scott, Eastwood, and they're called Diablo. They suck.
Or Rush, where you shoot somebody, you never get released.
I went on Friday to go watch it. The AMC thing. It was the theater was packed. It was just a fun experience because I've never really seen a Western on the big screen before. Really.
Did you see Tombstone?
Yes, but never. I was too young to go watch it in theater.
Okay, but you didn't. So in other words, you really haven't seen, like, you didn't see Tombstone. Did you? No. What about a few years ago when we reviewed the remake of True Grit, which was pretty solid? Did you see that on the big screen?
Did not see that in theater because you know what? Because at the time I was still a little younger and I was not really in the Westerns as much. Right. I watch Unforgiven. Everybody says Unforgiven. Oh, it's great. It's all right. I prefer Clint Eastwood's younger days, when he was doing the other High Plains Drifter,
Tiger Sanction.
Yeah. Tiger Sanction, yes, which we reviewed on the channel.
Mm-hmm.
The Outlaw Josie Wales. So going into this, and I guess what prepared me for this whole, because I had known this was going to be like a 4-part thing, or at least 2 parts. So
I thought it was a 2-parter as well. I didn't realize it was 4.
So I figured it was going to be like, kind of world building because, it's the first part and they're going to get to the next part. So I knew that going in there and having been a comic book fan, and there are writers who did this for comic books. His favorite, Jonathan Hickman, does this. He's currently dealing with his new alternate version of the Marvel Universe, currently comic books, and he's been world building. And sometimes, and now it takes a little while to get going, but once it gets going, and all the pieces start lining together, it's going to be great. And then, so when I went into this, I went in that with that same mindset. Okay, I'm going to go this. But plus, it's Kevin Costner returning to a Western role.
Mm-hmm.
And you said Tombstone and Dances with Wolves. I think that's the last time he's actually done, other than on the big screen. But the little screen, did Yellowstone. Didn't get a chance to watch that. I know people like that. So maybe I'll give that a chance. But initial thoughts, this is a bloody fantastic film, and it's modern and Western on the big screen. Yeah, wow, that was my takeaway. But
yeah, there's when I think of movies, generally speaking, because I get a bit more selective about going out to see it, because I actually really do like the theater experience for the most part. It's just that most everything to me is not worth seeing, and it's certainly not an affordability issue and all that. So sometimes I'll go to, like we have here in Central Florida in the old Money Winter Park area, a nice little dinner theater called the Enzion, that will show just a couple films there, and they'll show older films too. So a lot of the art house stuff will play there, and it's just a nice, pleasant experience to see it, and it's a little more intimate with food and everything. And rather than these big ones where if you go see it on IMAX, that it's a huge one,
yeah.
but the other 10 screens that Mission Impossible is playing
Right.
on 2 feet tall and like five other seats in there, right? Can't stand that. But Mission Impossible and any Western and any James Bond film, or like say Godzilla, whatever, I'm gonna go to the theater and see it, automatically take my money, because to me, I agree with you. I think Westerns can be ideal in that Westerns almost always automatically imply a very simplistic approach to human nature, and good and evils is very simplistic, but it's usually you're going to get two sides of something, whether it's a conflict in town, or in this case here we're going to talk about Indians and the people that were here supposedly before the white man, and what effect that has on the movie and what he's trying to do. But it's simple storytelling, and if it's done well, it could still be engaging. But you still have to, I think, have people that you got to center yourself around emotionally. I think, like what you were saying, you're absolutely right, that you can have a lot of things be introduced to you, and then it takes a while before they get going. The problem is, like in Yellowstone with Tyler Sheridan's, which I watched the first season or two, I couldn't find a center to really get excited about. And that's why you and I actually liked Tulsa King and reviewed that here on the Extreme Movie Show, season 1, because we center around Stallone, and it was written more that way. Here I had a tough time because Costner doesn't appear, and his character told, I don't know, maybe like an hour or so in the film, maybe almost halfway. And I don't have a problem with that, I really don't. But just sitting back watching this film, I go, they're moving at their own pace, they're not in a rush, they're being deliberate, they're introducing a bunch of different characters. Whether you like what happens or not, it depends, because this is not a movie that holds back, I will say that.
This is so going into this, I was thinking like, okay, Kevin Costner is on the poster, but then I started looking more, and I was just like, I saw they had multiple posters with different characters on there, so I had a feeling this was going to be a multi-story movie. And I was glad that I was right, because this reminds me so much, and this is probably the modern day reboot of How the West Was Won by Kevin Costner.
I think a lot of people are saying that. I believe we reviewed that, and that was the one I think that was filmed and was not Panavision.
That's why
it looks pretty interesting,
and that's why I based tonight's thumbnail off that poster. Because usually it's a U shape with all and it's top says 24, brilliant actors, your favorite actors in one movie. And this literally has almost 24 different people in here, actors,
right?
And that you recognize. You get Michael Rooker, you've got Jeff Fahey, you've got Sam Worthington, who hasn't been really doing much since what.
You're like, I know that guy.
So turn me to salvation. You're that guy. Yeah, because he's always in the movies, but he's never really the main star. Sienna Miller, she came out of nowhere. I'm not sure where she's been in before, but so there's a lot of actors in here. Jenna Malone, who is no stranger to the big screen with the Hunger Games. You got Luke Wilson returning to the big screen. You also got what's his name? Danny Huston. Always a favorite. It's some new faces kind of mixed in. Will Patton, he's been in a few different things. And it is. There's 3 different stories, and it's basically centered around this what's going to be a town called Horizon, and it shows you throughout the Civil War years. It's going to be like a 1861 through 1865. I guess it's going to be like this. That's the story it's going to be, and how they're all going to come together towards the end of this film. Into the second part, which they've already filmed. That's going to be out in August 26th, I think it is.
Right.
And then they're filming the third part right now, according to Wikipedia. They're already filming it. So that being said, though, there's 3 different stories, and it kind of moves a little bit. And we'll get to the end and we'll talk about that as far as things moving, because if you blink, you'll miss a lot of things. But you got Kevin Costner's part isn't until later in the movie. He's like the second act. The first act with Sienna Miller, and Kevin Costner's actual son is in here too.
Yes.
Yeah, he plays her son in this movie, where basically let's just start off. It starts off with very, very good soundtrack. Scored by John Debney, He's no stranger to other films, doing a lot of stuff. As far as I was looking at he's done White Fang 2. He does These Little Giants. He's done a lot of different movies. The Wild Pair.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he has done a lot of The Relic. So Passion of the Christ, Venom recently.
I know what you did last summer.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, so they got a guy whose his dad was basically worked for Disney as doing soundtracks and stuff like that. I think his last one he scored was Garfield movie 80 for Brady before the Heads. Hocus Pocus. So he's kind of on there. He's not your John Williams. But I gotta say though, I love the music. The music from the very beginning.
It feels like Western music, doesn't it?
It does feel like Western music, and it feels like the American New Frontier. Starts off at this beach, and you see these guys basically planning. They got the little they got the what's it called
plotters, so they can plot lands, and map it out when you start a city. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. So at first I thought they're nailing down these stakes with the wire and stuff.
Not for tents and not for vampires, but to
But I thought maybe
your land.
Yeah, and it didn't dawn on me at first. At first, I'm like, is he planning out? He's got these plans. He's gonna build a house there. But so you got this two guys, and then there's like two kids and stuff, and they're doing all this, and the kid's not that old, and he kind of looks like Professor Pixel.
The young 20-something here on the Extreme Movie Show.
Yes, and so basically, while they're doing this, it cuts off of the cliffs. You see these two small Indian kids or Indian kids. What do we call them? Native Americans.
Native Americans.
Yes. Well, I mean, they
you can't say Redskins because there's Blackfoot, there's Apache, there's tons of different ones. So
I guess they're described as Apache in the film.
Okay.
No, so whether they are or not, they don't specifically say. It's just the settlers call them. Because they're probably the most feared, I guess, according to this film. Anyway, so these two kids are watching them, and they're like, one says the other one, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Well, they're playing a game." Everyone knew. Well, he'll look through his little thing here, and then the other one will, walk, hammer stick down and walk, and it's like string. It's like, and he's like, "What a stupid game."
You know what I liked about this, though, as simple as it is, seriously, because you're setting up for what's going to happen here. When you watch the rest of the film, you realize, and again, this is simple storytelling, but can be very powerful. This is just, it's like an allegory for what's going to happen and what he's trying to set up and what a lot of people are very divisive about. You've got people going out in the middle of nowhere, claiming land as their own. Yep. You've got these young Indians not knowing what the hell is going on, just like you have the people claiming land not knowing what the hell is going on either. So you've got two sides completely, it seems, ignorant of what's going to happen and then what it's going to turn into.
It quickly goes dark within that first 20 minutes.
They do, and that's one of the things about this film. Costner tries to present, I'll say, both sides of the Native American versus the Western expansion part of it.
Yeah, he shows both sides, as far as, just like every good Western, he tells us how sometimes revenge is just as bad, and, so basically, So cuts. Scene later, he's got his horseback. He's walking through the air. You see the tree, and then he's going through. He stops at this little church. He's like, "Where's Horizon?" And he's like, "Oh, you missed it," because Horizon was supposed to be back there. He passed it up. He goes back there. He discovers the body of the adult, and he's going. He's like, "Oh," then he looks around, and then he gets this horrified face on his look, as he sees the kid. And he goes up there and he brushes the flies out with his hat. Then he buries the kids, the people, builds three graves. I thought there's four. I can't remember offhand. But he puts them next to the tree on the other side. It has a really nice tree was growing, and he sings some hymns, and then he leaves. And then we cut to probably about a couple months later.
It's a few years, I think, maybe.
I can't remember.
Everybody's older.
Yeah. Well, these are different.
Noticeably.
These are different people, yes.
Mm-hmm.
So is it the whole time? There's a tent there. There's more people there, and basically you get this family. This family, the eldest son, is actually Costner's son, I didn't realize it because I'm like, wow, because he's old. He's up. He's like 67, 69, 70. The kid looks real. And then that dawned on me. It's like, well, I guess it's not that too cool for him to be a father and to be a young kid. But anyway, because I'm thinking like the kids. I'm thinking the kids like supposed to be like 14, 12, whatever in this. But he's actually probably like 20.
Right.
In real life. But so yeah, and they, everybody's dancing, having fun and stuff, and then
until
the family ends up going, up the retreat to go to bed. Well, the daughter is laying in bed. She sees, and this is cool. I love these houses. They had portholes which you can lock up and close.
Yeah,
but you can also fire guns out to defend yourself.
Yes,
it's really cool. And she sees someone walk. She's looking there. Someone walks by, and she gets scared. She goes to her brother. But then they hear, and his brother's like, the music stopped. And then they start hearing gunshots. So all of a sudden, they're freaking out. We could cut to the town. The town is burning. And the Americans are this section, whatever we call them. They're basically slaughtering them, scalping them. It is disturbing. They show you pulling, the hair and stuff, and it's just like there's a mother running with a baby. They shoot her in her back full of arrows, and then they take the baby. And like we don't even know what happened to the baby, but you can pretty much theorize. The one who's leading it, he comes up a total prick. Goes up to the guy who's playing the violin earlier, and he shoots him full of arrows, and he's like tries to pull his violin. The guy is dying. Brother says basically, "F you, you're not getting my violin," and he kind of smirks and walks away. And then so basically, they start to get surrounded. They surround the cabin where the family is. So people who eventually flee the tent, go up into the house with them. Well, some others make it up into the cliffs.
Yes.
And the one guy was going to start shooting. This is cool. There's two things going on. There's people defending themselves inside the farmhouse, the family, and then there's other people group. The other people in the group are in the cliffs. One was going to start shooting. He's like, dude, you shoot that, we're all dead. You
get our way position.
And so both people are kind of forced to basically let other people die. So the house gets lit on fire where the family is. The father stays with his dad to the very end. The mother and daughter basically go down this trapdoor and a little tunnel, and it collapses. So she basically survives by taking the gun barrel, the shotgun, jamming up into the surface using a rag, and then she's able to breathe out. And they do that until the cavalry arrives. The army comes, because one of the younger kids, those there basically fled with horses. And this is a cool scene where he's running with the horse. He's got two horses. I'm like, why does he take two horses? Because one gets tired.
Yeah.
So he jumps. He's little enough. He jumps onto the other horse, and he brings the army back. And this is where we're introduced to Sam Worthington, or Sam Wellington. Sorry, Sam Wellington. Is it
Worthington?
Is it Worthington?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. And right away, you can tell he's got Michael Rooker there as a second in command, and wow, it is just like you see people who were left inside the huts, they're burned. You saw it in the night before. You saw a family commit suicide by lighting a bomb inside their tent when the Native Americans come in while they're praying.
Yep,
it is it's
disturbing. It's supposed to be.
You went from the nice music to a guy discovering bodies, and then this, and so you're 20 and 30 minutes in, Rob. What are you thinking?
So for me, what I'm thinking of is one, I agree with you. I like the kind of setup. I don't mind I'll call it deliberate nature of the pace and the fact it's almost 3 hours long. Doesn't bother me at all because you get to do stuff with it. Because we don't, the first people making the town horizon with the stakes and all that, and then we see the attack later on. What I thought was interesting was actually two things. One, I wasn't quite sure when something like this is going on if it was either going to be the same as most movies or do something different. And you'd already pointed out how you had your two groups of people, the people going up into the cliffs, and then the other people, like say down in the tunnel. I thought the tunnel thing was really cool, and I'm going, wow, I know there's an attack, I know people are going to die, there'll be some survivors, okay, that's common sense, right? But I'm going, how is this going to play out? Is it going to be the same or is it going to be different? what was a little different. The whole tunnel scene with her and, like you say, with that was pretty cool. You don't see stuff like that every day. And I'm like, okay, we've got 2 branches of people to follow, so we're going to come back to that. The other thing I thought was sort of interesting too, as I mentioned before, here on Extreme Movie Show, we will only talk politics. We'll talk more food and suits and clothing and goofy ass shit and everything, rather than hate watch. We don't like to do that here. But I do have to mention that I think Costner deliberately tried putting in both sides. When I say Native Americans and white people, who's right, who's wrong, that's for you to decide what's going on here. I think to this point, it's just we're seeing different sides of it. But the part you're probably going to talk a little bit about next, as things start to amp up a little bit when we get to see Costner's character as well, is that you see and again, it doesn't matter that this is from the Indian side, because you would get this in any family unit structure. You have the young, impetuous son that thinks he knows best. He's got a lot of juice. He wants to go out and, take over the world and all that. Whereas the wise father's like, no, God damn it, you need to listen to me, sort of thing. So not everything is 100% from the Indian side internally, right? So you get some of that strife going on as well. So Costner's not stupid where he's just going to show you a white guy and the Indians are just there hooping and hollering and scalp. But no, he's going to give you some depth to that as well.
This is a chief that basically, as I said, he tells the other, he's like, all you've done is put a target on our backs. We have plenty to survive up here. So because the guy's saying, well, they're coming out, white men are coming onto our beaches, and they're killing our hunting grounds, and they're scaring the game away. And he's like, okay, and the guy's like, by you going after and killing them, there are more white people right now, than our little tribe here. Like, you're gonna cause us to be dispersed, or even worse, killed, because you started a war. And it said, it's a violence begots violence, and then it never ends. And you kind of get that. You kind of get to see that side, especially with the younger kid, like I mentioned, who basically rode off and got the army thing. Mm-hmm. He eventually comes across a tracker and a group of men who are basically going to go after, get revenge, and hunt down the Indians, that basically murdered the town and stuff, the folk. And he goes with Jeff Fahey, who's the tracker. It was really cool to see him in there. Mm-hmm. Just kind of randomly pops up. I'm like, I know that guy.
Right.
And this is where you get to see the other side. Because we saw a brutal 20 minutes of this savagery, just, killing white people and stuff. The kid goes with Jeff Fahey, and they go in stop at this little general store. And there's an American there who basically bought an elk. He was going to make trade. And he's, wants, so Jeff Fahey ends up harassing the guy. Because the kid was looking at, he's telling, because there's two guns on the wall. And he's like, well, you need a gun, handgun, pistol. He's like, and the kid's like, well, I like this. He's like, well, and a little exchange. He's like, basically, it's like, well, these are set. So whatever. So he goes with the little kid, he says like, well, that engine there, he might be one of the people that, that killed your family and stuff, And he's like,
I'm looking for the man who shot my paw.
Yeah. So it was like, he's really trying to scare, he has them like, hold your gun up, and the other guy walks in, he's like, dude, what the hell are you doing? Because there always is at least one voice of reason in there. And he said, like, this is, and he tells the guy who's there, the narrator guy who's with his own son, and they don't know, he's like, don't do whatever you do, stay still, don't worry, this is a game, don't worry, your life's not in danger, it's just a game. And like, I feel bad for that guy, because he's got, because if he stands up to Jeff Fahey's character, he'll be beat up too, because very high tension, a lot of bigotry. And so later on, after all this done, they leave and they come across a tribe. And they're on the rocks, and they're just spying on there. And I'm like, oh, this is going to end badly. They wait for the tribe's basically warriors to leave. And the kid's job was to go up and look on the cliff and use the telescope, basically to make sure that they're all gone, give the glow sign where they can go in there. And one of the guys, his horse gets loose and it wanders in. One of the younger kids sees it, and he runs out. His mom's yelling. That's this guy. I love that because the dialogue is like, his mom's yelling, get your ass back over here. He just got chores to do, pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he sees the horse, but then he looks over and he sees all the guys leaning behind this log. And he's like, oh shit. So then we have a gun pointing at him, and they don't want to shoot him because they'll alert everybody. And the kid is gonna draw his bow. And it's just all hell breaks loose. Luckily the warriors don't come back, but it's a slaughter. They just go in and start killing all of the peaceful people. There's women and children. And they slaughter them. And the kid's so distraught because he's like, what have I done? What have I joined? So it's like you get to see that both sides have a little bit of evil in them, a little bit of misunderstanding.
Yeah, I think the whole idea of a Western that I mentioned at the beginning kind of comes to play a bit more here in this like second act of this first movie, because for me it kind of picks up a little bit here when you see Costner and some of the other stuff going on. We can argue about prostitutes and towns and all that. You're going to see one in the Western, but
Costner's story was your classic Western.
It's just, again, you can present two sides of something, make up your own mind about whatever. You don't necessarily have to explore a particular specific idea like you would say in a hardcore science fiction episode. But what I liked here was that the tension that you get is real. It's not rushed.
Yes.
Whether it's, I always talked about violence. I love violence, but senseless violence is simply that. If it doesn't add to making a scene better or a story better, it doesn't work. And I had on something earlier this morning. I think Hulu or Netflix was on. I was doing some chores, and the first episode or second episode of Nip Tuck by American Horror Story guy came on, and I'd forgotten this plot until I started watching the episode or listening to it, where the plastic surgeon's son has got a girlfriend, and they're going to be firsts with each other. Their first time having relationships with somebody else, but the guy's uncircumcised. So he goes to his father, who won't circumcise us, and he goes to his father's best friend, who works with him, and he won't do either. Say, no, your dad's right. So what does he do? Like everybody else, he goes on the good old days of the internet to figure out the circumcision homepage, and they introduce this in steps in this episode. So what happens at the end of the movie? You know what's going to happen, and you're cringing thinking about it, and you don't see it, but all you see is. When he's sitting at his computer, after he starts working, he takes his hand, it comes up in his face, and there's a bunch of blood on his hand, and he passes out. The reason why I'm mentioning this is because this is a Western. You're going to have, no matter whether you call it good versus evil, Apaches versus white man, whatever. But the point is it's about the buildup and then the release of it. And this movie does a very good job of doing that. And when they get to this part here, it's done a little differently. It's a little more serious because, to your point, now this younger kid's getting involved in adult level decisions, whereas before it was just straight up, hey, this person got slaughtered, now this group's getting slaughtered. Okay, now it's a little more personal because we're getting involved with younger kids.
Yeah, so I want to talk about Costner's part because he moves around after this. In the beginning, it was kind of like jumping back and forth between Jenna Malone's character, who basically we see her at this farmstead. She's got this baby, and you see this guy. He's laying down, and I got confused. I'm like, is this the same guy we saw earlier? Discovered the two, people that were and Baird that did the grave stuff. No, it's a totally different guy. And so basically, she walks in there, opens the door, shoots him in the shoulder with a buckshot, at least twice. Knocks him down, steals the baby, and scares the horses away and escapes while he's shooting at her. And so we don't really know what happens to her character. So later on, we see Kevin Costner arriving in a town, and this town is really shithole. And I love how they use the younger son of the guy who was shot. He does survive, but his ma. What was her name again? It was like Sue Dickey, I think her name's. She's been on Justified. She's been on a few different shows, and she's that old. Remember Every Which Way But Loose? The old lady with the shotgun. That's what her character reminds me of in this.
Oh, okay.
And she's just like you don't go out there. You help your brother find your dad's horse. He's like, I'm going to kill the bitch, that tried to kill dad. It's like, and I'm like, oh my gosh. So yeah, and then the younger kid is played by I think it's Jesse Campbell Powers or something like that. He's
Jamie
a kid.
Campbell. Bauer.
James Campbell, yeah, Power.
Caleb.
Which I was surprised that he wasn't in like the top IMDb list. He was kind of pushed to the bottom. He's done some stuff.
He has.
And so his character comes with his brother, Jim Beavers or John Beavers in real life, whatever his name is. It's really weird. They go in the town, and it just happens to be the town where, Kevin Costner is. Kevin Costner, they just got done doing some mining or whatever. His men go into the whorehouse. We get introduced to I think her name's Abbey Lee or something like that. Tall girl, 5'11", fairly good to decent length. She is basically living with Jenna Malone, who seems to be married, and her kid's a little older now. And they don't really get along because she's like allowing her to stay up there, but they wanted to watch the child because they have to go to this meeting. And it turns out the meeting is kind of a trap because, they meet in this cabin. Who's going to buy their renting it out? Turns out to be, the two brothers, the two sons. They're looking for her. And the younger one pistol whips and kills her new husband. And so then the older brother is like, it basically tells him like, you fucking idiot. Now we have to go hide the body because we don't want to deal with shit. And so he has him go up to the cabin, go get the baby and stuff, and as he gets there, he runs into Kevin Costner, who just had having a conversation with Abbey Lee and her character, who is Marigold. Marigold said she had to go up there and she had to go watch his kid and stuff, and invite him up to dinner, basically in some little bit of R&R, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so these two, the younger son and and Kevin Costner, are walking up towards the same house. And you get to see just how irrational. You already saw how irrational he was because the younger son had just killed the guy. And in this whole conversation, I love this. They're walking up, and he's trying to figure out what kind of work are you in before this? What do you used to do? And work. I'm kind of wondering too. Is Kevin Costner, was he a former marshal?
You don't know, right?
You don't know. All I know is he had a 6-gun
mm-hmm.
On his shoulder, and he's fairly clean shaved, and he's not. He's got manners, and as they walk up, and through the younger son's the guy, he tells you, wow, this town's a really shithole, and you can tell it is because they just got porches. He's like, have they thought about ever just filling it in the dirt and stuff, just putting all wood down, make it nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I mean, I get a little humor to that chuckle, but as they walk up, shit's gonna go down. He's gonna draw on them. Because he's going up to the same place he's going. He's like, and I love this whole scene. And so I've been talking a little bit. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, like I say, I think one of the negatives about this film is exactly what we were talking about, that because they're doing world building, it seems like there's these not incoherent storylines, but ones that you just don't know where they're going to yet, and some may not interest you. Like you see a slaughter or two early on, you're like, okay, that's great. When's the next one coming, right? When's the gunfight going to happen? And so I would have preferred to have seen a little bit more of characters and maybe like some farm stuff or like towny stuff where it's hard work, man. If you've ever been on a farm and worked it or whatever, I mean, down here on my 5 acres, it's 94 degrees and it's like 7 p.m. at night and it's very humid. To be out for 20 minutes, even my dogs are panting like crazy. Being out there in the West and all that, even though people will tell me it's a dry heat, that's fine. But the point is, you got to have your head on a swivel. You got to be well versed in it with a gun. If your eyesight's bad, you're fucked. If you get appendicitis, you're fucked. If you break a leg, you're fucked. It's hard. And I wish there was a little bit more of the man versus nature aspect to it here, because I don't feel that we get it. We get more of what we call the pastoral aspect of that, where we are in awe and revel in the beauty that nature has, and I do appreciate that, but there's also a negative side to it that we're not getting in this film. He's really just setting up about people and sides. He's not doing it as a Western in terms of, oh my God, now they got to survive elements or deal with this, or at least not yet.
So I know what you mean. I mean, I want to see snow, horses and snow.
Right.
Yeah, I want to see the rain, and the elements. So eventually, I think we'll get to see that in part 2.
Sure, I agree.
Because once the town's finally established, it seems like there's
more big sky country. I think it is. So it's like we're gonna see it.
Yeah.
But I will say, Costner, when he comes on screen, again, for those that are interested in all that, it's where, to me, this is where it's going to be one of my final thoughts. We're not there yet, but you definitely got to see it on the big screen. I think on a small screen won't do it justice. Westerns just get better on a bigger screen that they have, and I do like it. But a negative also is to me that however you felt about it for maybe an hour or so until when he shows up, it feels like it's a little bit of a different film, not in a bad way.
No,
but different groups of characters and all that too. So I think it's kind of hard because you're not getting settled in with one group that you can anchor to. You definitely have to bounce around. But that's kind of a negative thing I have with Tyler Sheridan and what he does with a bunch of stuff.
So this is like, this is kind of like, this is where this is the third story, I guess. Costner's and Jenna Malone's where finally crossing over. Yeah.
Right.
So while this, basically it ends up with someone getting shot. And basically Costner taking Marigold and basically having to says they're gonna come for you because now this guy's dead. Apparently he was a big deal in town. People knew who he was.
I want to be somebody.
So Costner takes Marigold, they take the kid, and they leave. We don't know what happened. We don't know what happened to Gemma Malone, if she was killed, her character. All we know is that we see cut to the family, and the father's like, it's like, where were you when he was killed? And it's like, well, I was still in the camp. He's like, you should have been there. It's like, so, and he kind of fucked up. And you don't really you didn't see Jenna Malone's character at all. So I don't know if they killed her or they brought her back. But the monster is like, well, fuck that kid. He ain't part of his family. We didn't want the kid, but they want the guy, basically Costner, because he killed their son or whatever. And you get to learn that this is actually a crime family that owns all that, and they're notoriously bad. And I'm thinking like, oh shit, it's like now Costner's screwed. So he's taking the girl and they go on, and she's got her own horses and they leave stuff. And then eventually, as they get to the next town, and she's like, well, can't we just get there in 10 seconds? He's like, well, we should probably hang out because he sees the older brother and a few other of them down at the town. They're both up the hills. They're hiding in the woods. And he's like, well, we could sleep here tonight. It's like, it's like fine. He's like, she's like, oh, great. She's basically she bitches, but I like about this, she actually apologizes later. He's like, I understand you're a good man and you're trying to keep us safe. I'm just, I need coffee or something. It's like, it's just like, and just
bad night.
Yeah. So I like that. There's apologies. We cut about a few minutes later, or 20 minutes later. She's after he says he's gonna go get her tent and stuff, and she ends up fucking this other guy, and gets in an abusive relationship with him, and they're talking about leaving Costner.
Monkey ranching.
Yeah.
Polygamy for all those young people out there.
So then after this, the guy says, well, you got till tomorrow. And after he basically slaps her and I'm like, oh, what the hell? Anyway, so she goes back to Costner in his tent, and then basically he's like, I'm because he the honorable thing. He went out, helped out the town, and went out and worked and came back. So they're probably building a railroad. That's why I can think of it, because usually when you take a group of men and you leave, it's because you're laying on tracks.
What? You mean they're not mining for gold in them thar hills?
Yeah, them thar hills. That's not yet.
Not yet.
So he's tired. He's laying down. She straddles him and then rides him, and until and then she leaves.
So she's passing communicable diseases.
I know, right? I was like, thanks. And he's it is in this scene you get to see how old Costner really is compared to this woman. And I had to look it up because I'm like, this girl looks kind of young, but I realized she's probably like 37, 39 years old, and his character or him himself is like 60s. Is he? He's like 67, 68, or he's up there.
He's mid to late 60s, I think.
Yeah. And so you're like, I'm like, oh my gosh, Costner looks old. He still got that joyful kind of your youthful kind of expression on his face and stuff. But he was like, you could tell this is not the, hell is coming with me. You tell them, that bullshit. But anyway, so after this, we cut back to the first story. Sam Worthington, and they're back at the army base, and the widow is now got the hots for him. I'm like, that was fast. I think it's probably been a year.
Let me say this. One of the things that seems fairly realistic in here, and I feel like a little bit of effort was put into that, even
Yeah.
though it's a long film, you could overdo it with dialogue. Things happen a lot quicker, a lot faster that they usually do in smaller towns. And of course,
Mhm.
back then, when people didn't live as long.
Yeah.
So a lot of it, if you want to argue, it's just
Sure.
the
And
men female aspect of it.
that
The
was my
Kevin
second
Costner
point.
might be an older guy, but he's a resourceful guy
Sure.
that has value, that's
Yes.
survivability. So even though she's whoring around and that's her business and all that
Sure.
too, it's
And
just to be expected.
yeah, and like I say, like, as much as I talk about how the widow moving on and her husband and son belay the rest,
She
with
ain't
her
got
daughter,
time to grieve.
and no, and that's how it was, because like they're always looking for a suitor, because
You gotta
now,
get on with it.
yeah, because he's been nothing but gentleman to her and everything. So, and he actually doesn't really, he approaches her and he doesn't really want to, like, he says like, hey guys, are seeing rumors about this, and stuff. He's a very nice guy, but and
Are you
she
saying he's a cuck?
recognizes. Well, no, because the husband's dead, and this is after he died.
Yeah, that's
Um,
true.
yeah. So anyway, they end up forming a relationship. You don't really see like them going at it, like, going horizontal the Wankle tango, but like she gives him a small peck on the cheek. Sam or no, Danny Huston, which is his character, he has being the general there,
Mhm.
and we get the first mention of, well, Civil War. And he also mentioned there's also introduced these two younger kids in there, or not, I don't say kids, but they're like 17, 16, old enough to go to war.
Oh yeah,
And
absolutely.
they eventually get called away. Like they're gonna go, and the younger girl, the daughter, runs out. She, after cutting these yellow flowers or whatever, I forget what they're called, but they cuts them off her blanket and hands them to him. Remembrance, gives the other guy a kiss on the cheek.
Yeah.
And she's crying and stuff, and Michael Rooker's character, I love this whole entire thing. He's like, you got a good, because at first she thought it was a good claim on my daughter, causing trouble. It's like, no, it's like, if she had more of those, that really, those flowers really go a long way. And he's like, those boys are gonna end up holding those flowers till the day they die.
Yeah. That was
And
kind of cool.
oh yeah. Also, he's got an old lady too. I like about this too. And because they originally want to set up for the widow and her daughter, Sienna Miller's character. Like, so he recruits the two young Civil War the army guys, the kids, and he's like, all right, the old lady's on tea now. Go in there and grab her furniture. Because they're all afraid of her. He's like, here we are. He's like, 3 grown men afraid of a old woman. We're all armed. I love this kind of. And
The thing about Michael Rooker,
Yeah.
this is one thing that's interesting about just acting in general,
Yeah.
is that we've talked about a lot of people can act, be B players, C players, then
Yeah.
finally later on in the career, maybe they hit on something or whatever. One of the things I like about Michael Rooker, even though he was Henry in Portrait of a Serial Killer, which we reviewed here on the Extreme Movie Show, very great performance by him, no slouch at all. I like the fact that, like, if you're old and you're shuffling around and you talk like this, and you're like, man, you need to be put out to pasture, as the old Western expression would go. You know what? Just find that person to roll in the Western, and it's going to work, right? It's going to have gravitas or whatever you want to call it, because that if you've lived to be that age in a Western, you've seen some shit. You know what's going to happen. You know what's going down. You've got value.
Yeah, Rooker's had a good career. He's done some work with Marvel. The Guardians of the Galaxy. He's been on The Walking Dead. He was Merle Dixon.
Yep.
Daryl's elder brother in the very first season. And
he's a cliffhanger.
Yeah. So I love it. So him being here, I was like, and him just, you realize that the old woman that's still in the furniture is his old lady. And then he's like, she catches the boy. He's like, "What you doing?" Taking my still in her bed. He's like, "I'm gonna beat." He's like, "Ah!" So he's like, "Hold on, calm down." And he's like, "Let me show you. It's going for a good cause, And he takes it and he introduces it to the widow, Sienna Miller's character. He's like, and she usually sees her daughter. He's like, and he's like, "Oh," and it realizes what happened and everything. He's like, "Why don't you just tell me? I would have said yes,
Mm-hmm.
And that's you get a moment between Rooker's character and Sienna Miller's character, and he shows, we had a daughter, same age as yours, 8, 9 years old, died. It's a kind of bond over this,
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, it's a lot of these scenes are just
Human scenes.
Yeah, human scenes, yeah, emotional scenes, and it works. And for world building, it's like you sure we got open end plots, as far as what's going to happen to going on with Kevin Costner's character, Jenna Malone's character. We don't know the fate of hers, and then on top of this, we get another act. We get another one with Luke Wilson and Wiggins West.
Yeah.
And they are, and we get all these upbeat couple who are like, one's a sketches, the other one she's like, she's written books, and they're not pulling their fair share of work, and
well, they don't know how to, but they're the rich people out of place. They always throw these in there to show how you really don't know what the fuck is going on, kind of thing, to magnify that. So I was hoping here we'd see some of that man versus nature.
I was looking it up, and the girl from who Sienna plays Sienna Miller's daughter, and this character they're both last names Kitteridge on IMDb. The guy who's over here is helping out Luke Wilson with helping with everything going on here, is Will Patton. His last name's Kitteridge, so you damn well know he might be the brother of Sienna Miller character, or be the brother of her late widow or her husband. Right. So I'm thinking like, oh, this is gonna be interesting. After I saw that on IMDb, at this point I had no idea, but that's gonna be cool for a future movie. But anyway. So yeah, shit happens, and basically as they stop, they get water and the workers stuff and all, and they're like, oh, I'll take some. The woman, she takes a cup and she scoops the water, and what? And I love this Elizabeth Furman's character who plays Will Patton's daughter in this, and basically says because apparently the rich boy realized, oh honey, this water's not for us. I think it's meant for them, but the workers up there. He's like, oh, I'm heavens, I'll put my cup back, And the other guy, the Will Patton's other daughter says, oh, thank you. And Elizabeth Furman's like, what the fuck are you thanking them for? Freeloaders, And I love these. You get a little humor. You see a little tension, and there's some drama, and then they also, as they're going, they also notice that there's Indians on the cliff. There's one warrior, and then a second warrior appears, and so basically they sleep as they keep going, they keep pushing. They're doing 14-hour shifts.
Yeah,
14-hour shift. I couldn't imagine just riding 14 hours and just keep going on horseback. I wouldn't be able to feel my legs unless or my ass on a stagecoach. Those aren't comfortable. Really, they didn't have no pills, and you're going every bump on the rocks, everything. And this is really cool because you also learn about, remember, they had wagon wheels. Yes. The heat heats up the wood, and the spokes get loose. Mm-hmm. And they're running that problem. And they also got the Indians are basically, and they're afraid that they're going to come down and slaughter them. And Lucas says, they're not going to. They're just watching us. You just keep going. Mind your business. They'll mind theirs. Just keep going. We're not going to stop. So finally, they do stop. But he says, we're going to do a circle formation. We can defend ourselves. Put the fire in the middle and everything. And yeah, so it's kind of they got the whole Luke Wilson thing. And then after this, the film just kind of towards the last 15 minutes or 10 minutes, it just flashes as things progress. And you can see a glimpse. This is the problem I have for this film is the very last 10, 15 minutes. So much goes by. And if you blink, you miss it. So, yes. I mean, you see Kevin Costner being chased, and then he turns around, and like you saw the trailer, and he pulls his gun and shoots the rifle. You don't know what he's shooting at, but it's probably the family going that they found him. We don't, and Abbey's not with him. You see Abbey's, Abbey Lee's, or basically, aka Marigold is her name. She's with the guy who abused her. She's got a shine on her face, and they're on a wagon. And I'm thinking oh my gosh. So, and then, that's pretty much for me how it wraps up for me. Is that ending scene stuff. It kind of gives you a little bit. They also show a town, called Horizon.
Yes.
And I'm thinking it's like Deadwood now.
It's circular, we go back to where we started at the beginning of the film. Yeah.
Yeah.
I got one comment to make, and then I'll talk about the ending here a little bit as we finish up here. You've got me watching Bosch occasionally, so I think I'm on season 3, and I'm seeing some of the overall arcs of characters. But Bosch is interesting because, the guy that plays the police chief was in Haven. So, you see these actors in different things. You're
Yeah.
like, oh, it's the guy from this or the girl from that.
Yeah.
And I was going, okay, I know this is Luke Wilson's the other Wilson guy. And then
Yeah.
I'm like, who's this dude? And I'm like, is this the guy that says bitch in Breaking Bad? And I always got confused with this smooth talking guy that was on Snaky Pete, where the guy was a smooth talker, right? Because he's the salesman. So I thought it was kind of interesting that you had mentioned earlier before, okay, it's not just white guy engine. Okay, it's not just good versus evil. It's not outlaw versus sheriff. It's settlement versus territory. Then it happens on a bigger scale. Then you've got some other issues where you've got personalities getting involved here. So there's this deliberate unfolding of the same kind of idea, but being shown to you with different characters in different places. And then, we already had, an attack, and then we had a big slaughter. I think they didn't want to end here on anything, but I liked how they introduced two things. One, the what would you call it, like the criminal enterprise aspect to it, because hey, let's be honest, if you weren't physically capable of shooting the shit out of everybody and killing everybody, what's another way to gain power and status? Well, if you're not a hot woman looking to sleep with any guy and marry into it, and you can't kill somebody, you become a criminal, robbing banks, whatever, because that's where the money is. All those old-fashioned expressions. This is where it comes from. Circle the wagons. But I agree with you. I think for me, the ending here, I don't have a problem with the fact that there wasn't like it ended with one character or a cliffhanger, because you've got these different storylines that are starting to build up. Again, it's a positive and it's a negative. It's a positive because it's taking its time, it's unfolding. We're going to see how these marry up. I understand it here at the end with a flash forward, as we would call it. They just are trying to give you glimpses of stuff to make you go, oh, I don't know what's going to happen, or something's happening. How are they going to get there, to get you excited for the next movie? Obviously, all four of them have been, I would imagine, have written out for the most part, at least the key things to it. So if you watch this film, you might be left saying, boy, that kind of ended on a dud. I don't think so, because it's not an action movie. I don't look at it that way. To me, it's a drama, as a Western. It's not a shoot 'em up, rah-rah thing, even though there's some intense scenes in here. I just thought, again, it's another example of Costner trying to like play both sides of it, which isn't a bad thing. And the one thing I said at the beginning a little bit with the politics of it is that majority of the critics out there are very young people today. I don't know how many Westerns they've really seen. They use a lot of 50-cent words instead of 5-cent words. They get fixated on one thing, and they don't really talk about the movie, which pisses me off. And frankly, I don't need them, because you and I are good enough to review everything, along with Professor Pixel, the young 20-something here on the Extreme Movie Show. But like you, I thought this was a very good film. I don't hate Costner, but he's not a guy that I go, oh, it's Kevin Costner, I got to go see it. But I have noticed as he's gotten older, I've tend to like his movies a bit more. It's a bit more of that Robert Redford-ish kind of quiet liberal bit to it. He's just different, and he has some screen presence. I can see why people have liked him over the years. I like him in his older age. This is a passion project. It feels like one, but you know what? In today's climate, I'm glad, because you're not going to see a lot of this out there. So overall, I would say it's a decent movie. Thumbs up for me. I'm not going to say it's awesome, but there's some great stuff to it. But doesn't it make you feel like, oh my God, we're not going to get another Western again for a long time unless it's this? That's kind of sad to me.
That's kind of how I feel about action films. Everything is superhero films right now, or it's comedies, or horror movies. Westerns really haven't been popular since Eastwood.
Oh yeah, absolutely. They've died out.
So as far as this, I was just looking through the cast again. I know there's names I missed. The guy who plays the uppity rich guy, that is Thomas Payne. Also, he's another Walking Dead alumni. He played Jesus on The Walking Dead. So
that guy.
Yeah.
Bloody Jesus.
Yes, yeah. So that's why I'm like, how do I know this character? His wife is played by Ella Hunt, who she's from Anna and Apocalypse. She's still new as far as acting stuff, I guess. At least for me, she is. We also got Thomas Hayden Church, which was in August. He was basically scheduled a cast in there, but last year. But I don't know if Thomas Hayden Church is going to appear in the second arc or not. But he's not listed in the credits and all. But I was going through, is like there almost is 24 names on this list, more actors, kind of like how the West was won. And learning about this production, he was going to do this movie back in 1988. He approached Disney later after he did Open Range, and back in 2003 or 2002 or was, and so it's been in the works for a while, and you can tell he kind of like just made sure, that it was be an entertaining film, but also like as accurate as easy can, from Hollywood standards, without any. And honest, an interview they said like, they're asking about how you're like, because it came on June 26th. They're like, oh, your movie's flopping so far. It's like, he's like, well, people don't go into theaters anymore. I know, but I know damn well the ones that watch on streaming are gonna love this and want to watch the next part. So it's like he said, I basically make my sales through everything else.
Yeah, and I think too for Costner, I'll finish with this. I mean, he put up a lot of his own money for it, so he did put up. I'll give him credit for that. He didn't have to, but he probably had to for commitments to get the other ones made. We'll see what happens with 3 and 4. I think 3's filming now. I don't know if they're filming at the same time, but I think what changed my opinion, or actually just made me have one about Costner, because I was indifferent to him, was I remember one time, I don't know if it was Unforgiven or whatever, but I remember him talking about how good of an actor he thought Gene Hackman was, and like some interview with it. And I just thought it's really interesting to hear him, a guy that doesn't look too emotional in his face, talk about somebody that, we don't talk about a lot, but every time we do, we gush over him, and Gene Hackman. And that kind of opened my eyes to him. And so when movies started coming out, Gene Hackman, okay, let me give this a shot. Let me give it a try. Because, Westerns, like you say, they're not made anymore. They can be so good. They can be the perfect template for anything. I still stand by that, and they're dead. So, it's just one of those things where there wasn't good word of mouth on this. There wasn't really a lot of advertising for it. Don't know what happened, but I think the main people that produced it were like, oh, fuck you, Kevin. It's a project that got made, but that doesn't mean we have to produce it. And we've seen studio chicanery going on a lot of things too, and there's stuff going on too now with Paramount and Warner Brothers. There's still some consolidation I've been talking about since COVID that's starting to go through, and these things just don't seem to work that much anymore.
They're also
Kevin, people will see it, but don't expect it to make $100 million in the box office.
No. And there are all the stands for Yellowstone who upset them because Costner walked away from Yellowstone. Yeah, so they're pissed off. So they're like, oh, screw them.
Well, the fanboys need to get over it.
But that's probably about 10 people. It was really cool with this.
I'm sorry, I have an extreme announcement here. Tyler Sheridan has just signed off for another 16 shows. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So Mark Kasdan, do you recognize the name? He's one of the writers on this film, but he also wrote Silverado.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
People loved Silverado back in the 80s.
And I think you're going to see a lot of similarities with this and Silverado probably popping up.
Wow.
I wouldn't be shocked. He also wrote Dreamcatcher too, which was okay. Criminal Law, 1988, and then In the Land of Women. But his big thing, the first thing he wrote in 1985 was Silverado.
Nice. That's a good way to start, bro. Seriously.
Yeah. Honestly, nice. So this, I don't know who Lawrence is, so I couldn't tell if it's his son. He could be the son of Jebediah. I don't know. They don't list his name.
Kind of a big name in the movies. I'll leave it for you to look that up.
Yeah.
Final thoughts?
Final thoughts. Fantastic film. It's world building. You're gonna get about 3 or 4 different stories going here, and then they're at the end of this movie. They're all holding flyers for Horizon. Not Verizon. Horizon with H. Can you hear me now? Good.
I liked it. It was enjoyable. Not going to say necessarily that I'd watch it again, but I would definitely be watching the other films as they come out, just because I was like, you know what, it's a beautiful watch. It's one of those ones that you don't have to be very intense about, but you can just kind of sit back, not worry about politics, not worry about explosions, and just watch it, in a passive way, and get captivated to it, because it does draw you in. It just does so very deliberately. I think.
The other guy, John Baird, he's known for doing like the PBS stuff, the nature stuff. And so it's like, I can see why you're getting some of like the close-up scenes, the filmography when they show like the tumbleweed stuff.
But I want to see that.
Yeah, I know. But I mean, I'm saying, so when you watch the documentaries on the PBS, and they do stuff, how well they produce stuff, like you're gonna, So that's another guy who's also helping with the writing. Kevin Costner did some of the writing too. I don't know how much. He might just basically like, how about we do this? And the guy's like, okay, I creatively put it in, so. It's not like a Hudson Hawk.
Right.
Well, Hudson Hawk is great.
Anything you need to plug tonight before we call it?
Nah, just plugging this. You know, you guys. I hope it's great to see we had about 9 people watching. Still have 6 people watching. Josue, Jean Lewis. I'm probably butchering your name, but thank you for showing up. Anthony, it's always great to see you. Johnny, great here. Marani, thank you for all being here. Anybody else who basically isn't commenting?
Tuesday night. What is it?
Tuesday night is obviously it's Axel Foley. We're watching the new Beverly Hills Cop, and we're gonna review that on Tuesday. And then probably next Sunday is probably gonna be the Child or the Korean show that Anthony was talking about. Possibly do that next Sunday.
Yeah, we'll be taking a look at that, see if it's worth it.
But we'll be here. We'll be here on Tuesday night, 7 Central, 8 p.m. Eastern.
Spoiler alert. I think Eddie Murphy hit a home run with it.
Honestly, I have been hearing a lot of people saying it's probably it's probably as good as the first film.
We'll lay that for you to decide once you watch it, and everybody else does here on the Extreme Movie Show and joins us Tuesday night to review it. So until then, guys, thanks for watching, listening. Have a good night. As always, stay extreme.
Also, leave a comment down below in the enter and click like, subscribe, and check out another playlist we have on the channel here going. And yeah, we need a watch time. If you guys can just turn on mute and just let it go, cool.
Good night now.
Later, guys.